Welcome to David Game College Horizon Pods. Today I have with me Siobhan Flint, and Siobhan is the Head of UCAS and Careers and also is the Head of Film Studies. Siobhan, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, so UCAS is the University and Colleges Admission Service. It's an independent charity. It facilitates the application process to make it easier really for students to apply. It's completely online and it allows the universities to use that to convey their decisions about the applications that are made. It's impartial, so it doesn't favour one university over another or suggest any particular universities. It also doesn't give advice on finance or visa applications or anything like that. It purely exists to facilitate the process. And it's been running now for 30 years, so quite a long time. And students have to start thinking about it, prior to their application, particularly if they are early applicants, so those applicants for medicine, dentistry, Oxbridge.
Yeah. And is there a cost involved?
There is a cost involved. It's currently about £26.50, and that allows students to apply to up to 5 universities. That doesn't include conservatoires. That's a separate application.
Yes.
And those costs are quite different, more expensive, and you're paying per conservatoire.
Right. Good. And is it mandatory to apply through UCAS? Can a student apply direct to a university?
Most universities will want you to apply through UCAS. There are a few universities that you can make direct applications to, but generally they're all through UCAS. I think there are about 350 universities that use UCAS to facilitate the process.
Right. And does this apply for domestic students, international students, or is it for anybody that wants to apply to a British university?
Yes, both home and international students.
That's really good. So let's now move on to the application, the students that want to apply. And obviously you mentioned about medicine, Oxbridge, in comparison to other degrees. Could you tell me a little bit about the dates and when these applications need to be put through?
Yes, so there's one UCAS cycle per year, so I'll start by saying that. So UCAS opens, well, you can start registering the 14th of May, but you can't actually submit your application until the 3rd of September. Now, if you are applying for medicine...
Can I just interject there? Are you saying May, that's when you're in the first year of your A-levels, is that right?
Yes, so students in year 12, they can start registering on the 14th of May, so they can start filling out their application essentially.
Yes.
They can't submit that application until the 3rd of September. If they are applying for medicine, dentistry or Oxbridge, their application has to be with UCAS by the 15th of October.
Right.
So depending on when they return to college, that's quite a short window. It's about 4 weeks generally after they return. For all other students, for other courses, they have up until, well, for next year it will be the 29th of January for equal consideration.
Right.
So they have a bit more time. They can still submit an application after the 29th of January, but it won't necessarily be given equal consideration.
Right.
So I would strongly encourage all students to make sure that they don't miss that deadline.
I wanted then to ask then, since Oxbridge, medicine, veterinary surgery and all that, they have to apply by the 3rd of September. That means...
Not by the 3rd of September, by the 15th.
Sorry, 15th, my mistake.
Of October.
15th of October, my mistake. Yeah, my mistake. Therefore, those students will then have to do their homework beforehand by visiting universities much earlier than other students who are going to follow other courses. So how do you advise or counsel the students?
Yeah, so I would say that any student applying for 2025 entry should really be engaging in taster days now anyway, regardless of whether they're applying to do medicine or dentistry, those
Right.
types of early applications. There are lots of taster days and uni days that are happening right now, because actually when they come back in September, they have to submit their application by the 29th of January, so that only gives them that term.
Right.
Having said that, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things that those early applicants should be doing
Yes.
in readiness for submitting their application in time. Really, it depends on what course they're doing. I mean, if they're applying to do medicine or dentistry, there's a whole list of things they should be thinking about. They should be making sure that they've got relevant work experience. That can be virtual but also face-to-face, and there are lots of ways of doing that. But they should definitely make sure that they have that in place by the time they come back. They should also be reading around the subject, thinking about areas of interest for the courses that they're applying for. Super curricular engagement. So anything that extends beyond what they're covering in the specification for A-level. Quite a good thing to do there is to look at some of the reading lists on their chosen university websites, dip into some of those books and have a look. They should also be thinking about personal statements. I'll come back to that in shortly because there have been some changes, but they should be thinking about how they're selling themselves in that application. And of course they should also be thinking about the extra admissions tests that they will have to endure,
Right,
because early applicants will have to undergo tests that perhaps the other applicants won't need to do.
Yeah. So you were talking about the tests, and there's tests like LNAT, UCAT and so forth. Tell me more about that, and for which subjects do students need to take these tests for?
Yeah, so I guess the key one to think about is if you're applying for medicine or dentistry, the BMAT won't exist for 2025 applicants. And so all of those universities that previously used that have now opted to use the UCAT.
Right.
In fact, Leeds already did this year, they already switched over.
Very good.
So the UCAT is quite an important test. It will help universities to shortlist those applicants that may seem the same on paper in terms of their predicted grades, their GCSE profile, their personal statements and so on. It's a 2-hour test, it's online. It's quite tricky, so they can't just sort of wing it. They do need to go and practice it. UCAT do recommend about 20 to 25 hours of prep for it.
Right.
And there are lots of resources online. I know for our students, they do a mock UCAT with me beforehand, and we have a look at their areas of weakness. It's quite useful for those students to have a look at their chosen medical schools and to see how they rate the UCAT in their application process, because for some of them the situational judgment section carries quite a lot of weighting, and others less so. So it's quite useful to have a look. I mean, really they need to be aiming for at least an average of 670 in that UCAT, hopefully more if they can, because even if they've got very high predicted grades and a good academic profile, if they don't do well in the UCAT, they're not likely to be shortlisted, and unfortunately their application probably won't be successful.
Yes.
So make sure that they are really ready for that.
Can a student have a second go at it in the
No.
same academic year?
No.
Not at all, huh?
No, that's a really good point actually.
Yes.
No, they get one shot at this.
Wow.
So UCAT opens for registration around June time, and they have up until September to sit it. I generally encourage students to sit it as late as possible so that they get the most practice. But that's sat externally, so it's not sat on site with us, so they need to make sure they register on time and are ready for it. But they will know their UCAT score before they apply, which is quite helpful actually, because they know whether that application is a kind of a viable one. Remember, they only get 4 choices for med school, and the 5th should be their plan B, related course. So whatever it is, pharmacy, biomedical sciences, or neuroscience, or whatever it is they choose.
Yes. Could I ask another question on the UKCAT? Are there universities which do not need UKCAT?
They all need the UCAT.
They do?
Yes.
All right.
All
I thought some didn't, especially some who might go through a different process instead of A-levels, one of the foundation.
They all need the UCAT. There are a couple of universities, independent universities, you can apply to directly. The UCAT is not as significant, but they all require the UCAT.
Okay.
There were 6 or 7 that previously required the BMAT. The BMAT basically was scrapped because it was quite hard to administer. It was very expensive.
Right.
So that's where that change has come, and they've all adopted the UCAT. But no, that UCAT test is important. Some universities, it's more significant for their shortlisting than others. And for some, the threshold will be lower than for others. So it's important that when they're choosing their schools, their colleges, that they have a look at those first.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, if I remember correctly, for law as well, there is an exam for law as well.
There is. There's the LNAT.
The LNAT, yes.
But there are only a handful of universities that use the LNAT. So again, I mean, that's quite it's an aptitude test. They do need to do their practice for that. Again, they need to register and sit that. But the universities that use that test are Cambridge, Oxford, London School of Economics, Glasgow, Durham, King's, UCL and Bristol.
Right. So very select.
And I think SOAS as well are still using it.
SOAS are using it, right.
So
most of them are Russell Group universities anyway, yes.
Yeah. But if they are concerned about sitting the LNAT, maybe choose a university that don't require it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard that they're planning to have some changes for 2025 entry, and quite significant changes in one particular area. Can you just go through them for us?
Yeah, I mean, the main change will be the personal statement. Traditionally the personal statement was one long piece of prose, 4,000 characters, where they, sell themselves and talk about their motivation for the course and how they're prepared for the course. But they're shifting from that traditional personal statement really to a more sort of focused set of structured questions, because they think that will be better for students. Students tend to agonise over this personal statement, and often it can cause them to delay their application because they're fearful of sending their personal statement off. So we have been advised by UCAS as to what the questions are likely to be. So I can kind of brief you on those a little bit.
Yes, please. Yes.
So the first one is likely to be their motivation for the course, and why do they want to study these courses. And for some students that might relate very specifically to their career aspirations, but others it might be just that they've got a really, a love of the discipline that they're applying for. So I would say that when they're answering that question, it's really important that they ensure that they research the courses and have a look at the structure of the course they're applying for, the modules, what's involved. Yes. It's really important that they show the universities that they understand what course they're applying for.
And they've researched. They've done the research.
Yes.
They've maybe visited the university, spoken to the departments and so forth.
Yes.
Attended open days. Is that? You think the important thing does that instill confidence in the university's choice of a student, knowing that they've actually they've attended, they've met us, they've discussed the course with them?
Yes, I mean, one thing I would say is that they still only have one set of structured questions that they're answering, so I wouldn't make it specific to any particular university, because it's still got to be generic and has to apply. for those 5 universities that they're choosing. But they should be choosing courses with very similar course content, which is something we've always said to them. If they're applying for lots of different courses, then their personal statement will be a very difficult one to write.
Correct.
So the motivation for the course is quite important, and they should know why they want to do the course. Also, their preparedness for the course. So thinking about how has their learning so far helped them to be ready to succeed on these courses. And really that gives them an opportunity to highlight what they've been studying in their A-levels, maybe to pick out particular modules or topic areas that they've really enjoyed, and to think about how they want to build on those skills that they've already acquired. And that's again, that will be personal to each student. Also their preparedness through other experiences. So what else have they engaged in that's relevant to their course area? So it might be super curricular engagement. It might be that they have been involved in something very specific, a taster day or a workshop, or a competition that is relevant, or work experience actually.
What is the length? I mean, now obviously you were saying before for the personal standpoint there was one essay.
It will still be the same, but it will just be over those structured questions.
Yes.
And I think the other thing that they're thinking about is the preparedness for study. What have they done to prepare themselves for student life? So they're sort of encouraged to reflect on their transition to higher education, where I suppose they'll be more independent in terms of their learning, and in some cases in terms of where they're living, because there'll be a lot of them will be moving out of home if they haven't done so already, and that's a transition that they need to consider. And I think that's probably where it's important also that they do go and visit the universities and think about accommodation and
on campus, campus-based
admissions tests. Some of them, whilst they're applying, others they don't have to sit until they are perhaps shortlisted. But some of the main changes is that the ESAT, the Engineering and Sciences Admissions Test, has replaced the former Natural Sciences Admission Assessment and Engineering Admissions Assessment. So that's kind of a key one. And that's from 2025 entry onwards. Also, the University of Cambridge and Imperial College are launching a new joint venture, and that's to deliver admissions tests for science, engineering and maths-based degree courses. And again, those tests will be delivered by Pearson. And so that will provide 2 sets of tests, the ESAT, which will be used for degree programmes in engineering and natural sciences, chemical engineering, biotechnology, and also veterinary medicine at Cambridge, and physics and most engineering degrees at Imperial. Also, the test of maths for university admissions, the TMUA, will be used for economics and computer science degrees at Cambridge, and both the economics, finance, data science and computing degrees at Imperial. And a number of other UK universities will also use the TMUA for assessing applications for maths-based courses. And what I would suggest, again, is that students ensure that when they are choosing their universities and their courses, they have a look to see if there are any additional tests required. So that it may be that they're not applying to Oxbridge, but they may have to sit an additional test. So it's really key that they have a look at that, they check the deadlines, and they make sure that they are registered for those tests and prepared for those tests by the deadline required for that university course. Because if they miss the deadline,
obviously
then that's
they're not considered, are they?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me from your experience what weighting do the universities put on these tests?
Well, it is a shortlisting process essentially. I mean, you have to remember that these universities are highly competitive, and you may be coming with excellent set of grades, an excellent academic profile, but they really want to see that you're going to be able to progress academically on those courses. So they are really much like the UCAT. It's a way of shortlisting students that are very similar on paper, or if they're interviewed, have given similar interview performance.
And also from your experience, do all the universities then want to interview these students, or can they, based on the information they have, actually give them a conditional offer?
Not all universities interview, no. I mean, obviously, Oxford and Cambridge do, and lots of science courses, things like physiotherapy, pharmacy, those sorts of courses universities will interview for. Imperial generally interview for most of their courses. LSE don't interview, and a lot of their weighting is on academic profile, admissions tests if it's required, but also personal statements. I mean, they read the personal statements very carefully. Right. Some universities, place less emphasis on the personal statement, and it's not part of their priority. It's not that they don't take it into consideration, but they may not look at it as carefully as others. Right. But because the LSE don't interview, they do read the personal statements very carefully. So if a student is applying to the LSE, if that's one of their options, they should make sure that they really do, spend a lot of time and effort on that personal statement. Yeah.
We haven't talked about students who may need portfolios, architecture.
Yes, that's a good
arts
one.
And design and things like that, film studies and
So there are lots of universities that require portfolios as part of the application process. So places like UAL and lots of others around the country. The weighting on that portfolio is huge in comparison to the A-level grades. So, for example, if you look at some of the entry requirements for UAL courses, and of course they are, highly competitive, they can be B grades, rather than A's and A stars. But they will require the portfolio. And what I would say to students about the portfolios is that make sure that they listen to the advice from the college that they're applying to. UAL, for example, if you're applying for more than one course at a UAL college, you can adapt your portfolio for that course. You shouldn't just submit the same portfolio.
Yes.
They will give you quite some guidelines about how many images and so on they need to include, and so students need to pay particular attention to that, and make sure that they submit them in time, that they are responding to the deadlines and uploading the work to the portals. Most universities have their own portals. You can't upload any documents on UCAS, and so once they've made that application and have had some communication from the universities, they'll be given a set of login details specifically for that university. So they need to make sure that they add the portfolio there and any other documentation in time. Otherwise, they might find that they have, been rejected by default.
True, and that would apply for music as well, I imagine, yes?
Yes, auditions, if there are pieces that they need to apply. For music courses, it tends to be an in-person audition. But, I mean, the portfolio will normally be accompanied by an interview. And so, they can discuss that during their interview. And also, I would say, for those arts-based courses, make sure that they are showing those portfolios to their subject teachers, getting some support and guidance with those, and making sure that they're tailoring the portfolio to the university that they're applying to.
Excellent. And I think another important aspect for applicants is when they want to apply early and be prepared for that. What advice can you give to those type of students?
Yeah, so just sort of coming back to what I've said, just making sure that they are ready for that application, because it is, there's a lot of work that goes into an application for medicine, dentistry or Oxbridge. So I would say that they should be focusing on that as a Year 12 student in the summer term, doing the supercurricular engagement, going to extra workshops, listening to lectures, reading around the subject, documenting what supercurricular engagement they've been involved with, drafting personal statements or the responses to the structured questions, as they will be for the 2025 entry, so that when they come back, it will maybe just be a case of a bit of redrafting and a bit of editing, and they're sort of ready to go. So that then they can focus on admissions tests and other aspects of the application, rather than just on the personal statement or question responses.
As a parent, and I had 6 children going through the system as well, what advice do you give to parents in order to support their children, or not to support their children in certain cases?
I think there's so much research out there that's accessible for students. The UCAS Hub has a real wealth of information on it, that parents can sit down with their children and have a look at universities, courses. Entry requirements are really key. Be realistic but also aspirational. Start to shortlist. You might have a long list to start with, but start to shortlist. Go and look at the universities. That's pretty crucial. You're going to be spending 3 or 4 years of your life, and a rather large sum of money these days, to study there. So make sure that you've gone to see the university, the campus, speak to students on open days. They will give you the truth about how useful the course has been and their experience there. I think that's quite a key one. And start also using other platforms. We've got Unifrog that we use at David Game College. There's lots and lots of information, lots of webinars that students can access on there. They all have their own login details, and parents can do that as well. They can sit down with them. There's lots of tips and guidance. So it's just researching, taking the time to do the research. This is going to be one of the most important applications that they're going to make in their life. Yes. And it's worth time. It's worth their time investing in that and making sure that they've done the research properly, so that they're making the most competitive application, and that it's the right choice for that student.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is that how much emphasis would you put on the students looking at and participating in career fairs and looking beyond just university, because university is the first step for their future career?
Yes, UCAS do run lots of events. We've been to 2 of them this year. So one was the Create Your Own Future event run by UCAS at the Excel Centre, which specifically aimed at students who want to apply for arts-based courses. And the other one was the UCAS Discovery, which most of the UK universities have reps there, and that gives them the opportunity to talk to the representatives, to think about entry requirements, student life. So those can be quite useful to have everything in sort of one place. But once they've sort of gone beyond that and have a short list, it's a good idea to actually go to the university, look at the department, look at the facilities. Are they what they're looking for? How is that course going to prepare them for the career that they want? Right. That's quite key.
Do you find any changes in the number of students that are looking not to go to university, but basically want to then go into a career-based university degree program? In other words, that, for example, it could be in accounting, it could be in law. There are a lot of schemes out there where employers are looking at very high students who have good grades, but are looking at a different direction, different approach.
I mean, I think the numbers applying for university seem to get higher and higher every year. I think mainly that's because students tend to see that as a route that is suggested to them. You do your A-levels and you go off to university. That's not for everybody. I think a lot of students are considering apprenticeships now, apprenticeship degrees, which actually you can apply for apprenticeship degrees through the UCAS Hub now, which you couldn't before.
Oh, you can? Oh, that's interesting, yes.
But also, there are so many websites out there, the government apprenticeship website or notgoingtouni.com that list all of the apprenticeship degrees that are out there, and that's on a rolling system, so there's no deadline if you do it outside of UCAS. It's a rolling system, and they can do that simultaneously to applying to UCAS. They can have both of those options. They tend to be very competitive. They often still need very high degrees, high predicted grades rather, and there's quite a rigorous interview process, 2 or 3 rounds generally, because when you're applying for an apprenticeship, you're essentially 80% employee, 20% student, so you are given a salary, you have all the same benefits as somebody who is employed with that company, but you're also getting your tuition fee paid, which is quite nice, given the financial impact of studying a degree course down.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely worthwhile thinking about. And you're coming out with the work experience that your peers with the same degrees won't have. So that's quite a key thing to remember. It's for a very attractive prospect now, I think, for a lot of students.
I agree with you. Finally, how successful are David Game College students in getting into the top Russell Group universities?
They are successful, yes. I mean, all of our students who apply to Russell Group unis get offers. Obviously, they have to fulfil the entry requirements of those offers when they get their results. But we have students that go to a whole range of different universities, from Cambridge and Imperial to Exeter, Warwick, lots of Russell Group unis, but also students who go off to conservatoires, which is also very competitive application process, or go off to kind of top art schools to do arts-based courses, which are increasingly competitive as well. So I think as long as they're driven and focused and do their revision, then they will succeed and get where they want to go.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Siobhan, and looking forward to probably next year's UCAS developments.
Yes.
And
I'm sure there'll be further changes.
I'm sure there will
to talk about next time.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Theo.
If you want more information on all of our courses and any topics discussed in today's podcast, it can be found on davidgamecollege.com. And thank you to everyone who has been listening to the podcast. Thank you so much.